Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Apostle T.B. Walker. I want to take this time to welcome you to our Sunday worship in the Word. I'm so glad that you're here. Certainly glad that I know that you're going to share what you're going to get today. It's going to be a blessing to you. I just believe that there is, again, always a timely word, no matter how old the scripture is, and so people talk about it's outdated. Maybe it needs to be updated. You can't update God's revelation. And it is continuously relevant. It has one meaning, but it continually unfolds to every generation and is a guide and a light to our feet. So I want you to just sit back and receive what God is saying today. I'm going to be coming today out of the book of First Chronicles, chapter number 17. And I'm just going to read verses 1 through 6. This is First Chronicles 17, 1 through 6. And this is really, there's a lot really here to unpack. And I think that, again, it's going to touch your life. It's designed to move you forward, designed to give you revelation, take you out of places of confusion and darkness, and move you directly into light. So you can really see what God is talking about as he deals with purpose, as he begins to redirect us in our lanes. And in a lot of ways, it's also about God defining for us what our lane really is. As people who don't know how to pray as we ought, as people who are trying our best, to do what we think is right. We have to understand that there is a way that seems right to us, and it is the glorious grace and mercy of God that is here to, even in rebuke and even in correction, is really bringing us into his purpose and bringing us into our purpose, because his purpose is our purpose. The reality is there's a reason why you were born. There's a reason why you are like you are, and there's a reason why God's changing you in the way that he's changing you. There's a reason why you're in the environment that you're in, and the domination that you're supposed to have is not over people, but it's over atmospheres and spirits. It's over attitudes and mindsets. And that's what God is talking about today. Once again, that's book of First Chronicles 17, verse 1 and 6. I'm going to read this for you. It says, after David was settled into his palace, he said to Nathan the prophet, here I am living in a house of cedar, while the ark of the Lord of the covenant is under a tent. But that night, the word of the Lord came to Nathan, saying, go and tell my servant David that this is what the Lord says. You are not the one to build me a house to dwell in. I have not dwelt in a house from the day I brought Israel up out of Egypt. To this day, I have moved from one tent site to another, from one dwelling place to another. Wherever I have moved with all the Israelites, did I ever say to any of the leaders whom I've commanded to shepherd my people, why have you not built me a house of cedar? Now, keep that there, but I'm going to read something to you in 1 Chronicles chapter 22 and 8. And here's what it reads. But the word of the Lord came to me, saying, you have shed much blood and have waged great wars. You shall not build my house. You shall not build a house to my name, because you have shed so much blood before me in the earth. Let's pray. Father, in the name of Jesus, God, we just thank you right now for this gathering. God, we know that as we're gathered together in this particular time, online, at a time that has not been seen before in ancient days. God, we know that as you were able to gather with your people in caves, and as they gathered together, you were there. As they moved and gathered in houses, with Priscilla and Aquila, we know, God, that you were there. As they began to move in monasteries and they moved in Europe and Africa and all over the world, as the gospel spread, you were there. And as we now move into a cyber place where we're still supping with you, though we're not in one place, God, we thank you right now that we know that your spirit is there and is able to move through waves that we cannot see. So we bless you right now for fellowship. We thank you right now for allowing us to be able to come together. But we thank you most of all for your presence in this place, that in all places you will be there. And we know right now that you're here right now to give us instruction and guidance and direction. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, I want you to take a look at David and where he is, because David is in a really different spot in his life. The wonderful thing about the Bible, we don't get every detail, but we get to see, this kid come up and, grow from the place where he's a shepherd and is forgotten. And, we look at the Psalms and we really feel, so some of the real difficulties that David had in growing up, how he really felt. I was only loved by my mother. David had brothers. But we don't really see any affection that's given. We don't see any affection that's given David from his father. We don't see really any purpose that they have for him, that there's nothing poured into David, but by God. There's nothing, he's not told he's special. there's a feast that happens and David is forgotten. Samuel comes in to anoint the king, and it's going to be David. But he looks around and these aren't the guys, and he says they're not the ones. He says, do you have any other sons? And they've got to be reminded that, oh yeah, the shepherd, he's basically like an indentured servant. He's like a slave here. But we see the rise of David. We realize that God's hand has been on his life, that he's going through growing up as a shepherd boy, killing Goliath as a teenager, becoming a part of Saul's court, entering into his family, becoming a renegade over a period of time, falling out with the king, and the king going after him and trying to kill him. He is going out and fighting against Israel. He becomes somewhat of a renegade, a terrorist, if you will. David's had a lot of phases. He comes back and he becomes a statesman, struggling as a father, not great as a husband, but he gets better in so many areas, of his life. He's better with Bathsheba. He's not great with the younger kids, but, Solomon, as the older kids, but as Solomon comes along, he's changing and shifting. His mindset is different. The Psalms that he, of confusion and God, where are you? And, I've called on you, but you haven't answered me. Change now. And David now starts talking differently. You're the rock of my salvation. He begins to really look and think back over his life and see how the enemies that came in to eat up his flesh, that somehow God was able to allow him to stand upon a rock that was higher than him. I was young, but now I'm old, and I've never seen the righteous forsaken or his seed begging bread. So we see that David has now shifted and changed in his ideas and his mindsets, and we now get an insight into the musings of David, that in the middle of the night, David begins to think about, obviously, the goodness of God, because that goodness begins to transfer into David's life and where the Ark of the Covenant is. I don't believe that David, believes that, God is the Ark, but he knows that there is a symbolism that's there, but that God, the presence of God, obviously is connected and resides somewhere near the Ark, because the history is such that when the Ark went out, victory was had by Israel. This is not something that David is looking at just in his time. David is realizing, is thinking back about the history of his people. David's going back over the history of victory over a ragtag bunch of ex-slaves. He realized the awesomeness of God, but in the midst of that, it is also looking at him. David is sitting here in the palace. He has got prophets around him. He's got men that he could snap his finger, but he remembers who he was. He remembers the little shepherd boy. He remembers, being back down there in Bethlehem. He understands he doesn't come from anything, and here he is with a crown on his head. He realized that he didn't have any money, and now, food and power and prestige and all of those things, people bow before him, and yet he came to the battle with a cheese wheel and had no idea that he was going to be pitted against a giant and win. He had no idea. He had thought he was going to die so many times, and yet he's still here, and he's thinking now about God. He's looking at the Ark of the Covenant. He says, here I am in a house of cedar. Still, this little country boy sitting up here in a palace made of some of the finest wood. And when I think about God, when I go out there to commune with him, when I go out there to be in his presence, I'm going into a tent. So when I look at that can't be right. God has honored me. He has put me in a place of honor. There's got to be something, there's got to be some way I can honor him. The heart of David is such that he's looking and saying, what can I do for God? When the Psalm talks about that very same thing. How can we render? What can we render unto him? What do we have in our basket that we can give him because of our daily benefits? Those are the moments of clarity. Those are those moments of revelation when you realize that, you have it pretty good. No matter what's going on, you can still have a list of things that are not going right. But when you begin to look at it, you realize you have it pretty good. And it's not because you saw a video of Burundi. It's not because you saw Rwanda. It's not because you looked out and saw what was going on in the Mekong Delta. It's not because you looked and said, oh man, they eating out of trash over there in India. I have it pretty good. No, you realize that where I came from is so far, and the statistics said I I was going to be. When David realized that I'm living the impossible, I'm the youngest son. The inheritance that I get is like, by the time I get it, it's trickled down to nothing. So I'm not going to be a landowner. I'm not going to have a sheep of my own. I'm always going to work for somebody and be somebody's boy. And here God has made me a man among men. This is fantastic where I am, but this isn't right. So when David begins to look at this, he looks at the ark and where it is, and he says, God's due greater honor than this. This isn't right. He can't sit there in some simple veiled curtain place. He's bigger than that. So when he talks to Nathan looks at David, and I'm sure he's just impressed. And, because Nathan has been there. Nathan has had to rebuke David. Nathan has seen David when he was not at his best. Nathan remembers the young renegade. He took him on as the king, but he's the prophet. He's got to speak power to truth to power. He's been there with David. Things haven't always been good, but Nathan looks at this, and he's also a part of this legacy. Nathan's looking around and saying, this boy's come a long way. He's a man now. And look at this thinking. And so Nathan looks at him and says, listen, man, whatever you have in your heart, do it. Whatever you're thinking about what you want to do for God, do it. And listen, I'm going to tell you right now, there's something that's coming later where God doesn't approve of it, but Nathan is not in a place where, he is, you should have prayed first. As a prophet of God, how could you not have heard from God? This was illogical. This was a no-brainer. There's some stuff that we want to do that we don't have to pray about because we already know, like, God, I know you with that. This is good. This is a good thing. This is a right thing. And I ought to do this. And so Nathan goes back and he's ready for a good night's sleep. David is now ready for a good night's sleep. Everybody's feeling good about, like, we doing that. This isn't like a suggestion. This is David said, listen, I'm telling you, Nathan, what we're about to do. Listen, get the troops together, get a meeting together tomorrow morning. Listen, we getting the architects together. They're going to see what a real godly king is like. I'm telling you right now, I'm worshiping tomorrow. Listen, if you saw me dance out my clothes when I was young, watch what I do when we start building this thing for God. And I'm telling you, it's going to be awesome. I've got a blueprint in my mind. I can kind of see where it's going to be. As I was traveling the other day and we came through Damascus and Syria, man, you see that thing that they had there? I'm talking about something like twice the size of that. David's excited. Nathan is excited. And he's saying, King, listen, let it flow. Baby, whatever you got going on in your heart to do, do it. Whatever elaborate plan to bless God in the way you want to bless him, go ahead and do it. He's excited. He's going to be glad for that. So Nathan goes to sleep and God interrupts his sleep. The Bible says that night, that same night, God steps in and is like, nah, I'm putting a kibosh on this thing right here. He comes and he says to Nathan, get up now. Because you were the one who told him to do it, right? So, that's your job though. So correct this. And listen, that's a part of it as well. Sometimes the fact that you're a prophet of God doesn't mean you don't get emotional. Sometimes the fact that you're a prophet of God does not mean you hear at 100% level. You can get checked too. God comes first, and he doesn't talk to David. He said, listen, this guy's listening to you. I sent you there for this purpose. I get it. You walked in logic. I get it. You moved in emotion. It seemed right to you. So you didn't really know my will, but I'm going to make it plain to you tonight. Now listen, so I want to clear this up for you tonight. So I'm going to make sure you're right. The prophets have got to be willing to hear from God and be corrected from God. And listen, you know what that correction is? Sometimes that's correction that came out of your mouth already. We are assuming God is on always correct me before I say it. So when I say it, it's got to be right. No, as a prophet of God, don't forget you wear pants. As a prophet of God, don't forget you wear a skirt and a dress. So whoever you are, I want you to understand you are human. You're going to make mistakes. Prophets, real prophets, are going to have times when they said, I was sure that I thought God said that. I was sure I heard, but that it wasn't right. Listen, the Bible says that the prophet is a real prophet when what they say comes to pass. It doesn't mean that everything they say is going to come to pass. Listen, the fact that you can say some things that come to pass is a big deal for a person who does not know tomorrow. The idea that you can prophesy about a week later and that really comes to pass doesn't nullify the fact that, like, you don't know what's going to happen 2 seconds from now. Listen, that's just a gift from God. It doesn't make you some big shot. It doesn't make you, impervious to era. And so God comes in and he says, you were emotional. You weren't spiritual. But get spiritual. Put your spiritual hat on. Listen, you were walking in your feelings. Get out your feelings right now. Listen, you think it's right. Get on your job. Nathan is now with the king, but he's not operating as a prophet. He's operating as a father. He's operating as a friend. And listen, that's us. We're multitask. We're multifaceted people. And it's God coming and says, nah, don't tell him that. Don't co-sign that. Just because it seems right, it's natural for us to co-sign things that sound good, but they are not always in the spiritual plan of God. There are some things that seem right, and it's not like the devil is in it. It's just that you're not the one to do it. Listen, got it. You got some great revelation. That needs to be done. Yeah, but you're not the one to do it. The fact that they need to be talked to doesn't mean you're the one to do it. You can have the revelation that somebody needs to say something, but that doesn't mean it's you. And God comes back and says, listen, he's on track that there's a house that's going to be built, but not that there's a house that needs to be built. There's a house that's going to be built. Listen, I've got a plan for him in his time, and he's now trying to operate outside of his time. Listen, revelation can mess your head up if you are not led in your revelation by God. The fact that you get revelation, mind-blowing revelation, is just that. It'll blow your mind, and you can't operate with a blown mind. Listen, there are people like, oh man, my mind was blown. Listen, I'm gonna tell you right now, I can't listen to anything you say until you get your head right. Because a blown mind, it will blow my mind. And everybody's mind will just be blown. But nobody will get understanding. And the Bible says, in all you're getting, get understanding, mind-blowing vision, but you didn't understand what David was saying. So he said, listen, get up and go tell my servant David, this is what the Lord says. You are not the one to build my house. God doesn't say a house is not going to be built. He says it's not you. I don't approve of your vision. I want you to understand, I don't approve of your gift. I don't approve of your good thing. Listen, when we do something we think is good for God, we just assume it's going to be approved. I'm going to go help them. God, I know you want me to do that, don't you? I'm going to go invest in that. God, I know you want me to do that, don't you? I'm going to befriend this person that is a snake in the grass, because that's godly, and I know. And God will interrupt and say, you got some crazy mamby-pamby idea of righteousness that I did not create. You got some corny, kooky idea. Yeah, everybody that smacked you in the face, you need to go ahead and hug them and be their friend. Well, that's not me. That's not how I operate. Listen, the fact that they asked you, didn't you say anybody that asked to give it? Listen, are you missing the wisdom that's here? Listen, you don't have great interpretation. You don't have great wisdom. You don't really understand like you think you do. You don't get this. You just made yourself this. You think I made you a doormat. You think I told you to rise and shine, for your light has come, for you to get duped and drained out of every dime I've given you. You think I made you a punching bag. Is that what you think it's all about? That you're supposed to be last every time? Listen, but Lord, it's not about me. Well, what do you think I meant when I said that any man who's in Christ, he's a new creation, and that new creation now has to be guided into purpose? See, the reality is, that's what you did in your old way. You thought you had a plan and you followed it. And every time it crashed and burned, you tried to figure out, what did I do wrong? And God said it wasn't for you. You were riding in another vehicle that wasn't yours. When you got saved, here's what I was trying to do. Give you back your plan. When you got saved, what I was trying to do is put you on your track. When you got saved, I was trying to squash all that garbage you were talking about with your lane. And I was going to tell you your lane, because I alone know the thoughts I think toward you. They're thoughts of peace. And listen, I'm going to tell you right now, what you're trying to do is not going to bring you peace. What you are trying to do is going to bring, I started the ministry and it's just driving me crazy. But maybe that's what God wants. And listen, you tell me, show me where you see that. Listen, some people started something because you thought it was a good thing. It's got to happen. I mean, who's going to do it? That don't mean you got to do it. You got to be a pastor to pastor. You got to be an evangelist to be an evangelist. You got to be a real prophet. You got to be a plumber to plumb. So listen, are you shocked that water's everywhere? Are you shocked that you can't use the toilet now? Are you shocked it's going to cost you more? You're not a plumber. So the reality is, there are people trying to do things that would be nice. It would be nice if I did it. You better learn your limitations. You don't know how to operate a wrench. You better learn your limitation. Don't you tinker on that TV. You don't understand electronics. Well, listen, you have a lane. You have a lane you thought you had. Listen, did your failures teach you anything? Did your past teach you anything? When you were glorifying God and how good he had been, had you forgotten some things? See, this is a major part in David's life where things have been so good and he's mellowed for so long. He forgot the old days. He forgot some things that had happened. And God said, listen, I'm telling you right now, will you indeed build me a house that I'm you think you will? And so some of this is gumption that David doesn't know about. Like if you look at this, you'd have to look at it, well, like what's wrong? Like, I mean, this is a good thing I'm doing for you. Like, I mean, who else has said that? God was like, well, who else did I ask to do it? Listen, you have a hard enough time doing what I told you to do. You have a hard enough time doing what I asked you to do. All that grandiose stuff you want to add to it. Listen, let's stop being grandiose and why don't you forgive your neighbor? Listen, I mean, I didn't ask you to do that dance. I didn't ask you to get up in the morning and put that prayer shawl on and scream all night long. I didn't tell you to do that. You got up and was like, I just had to give him the best praise. Listen, you know what you should have done? Be obedient to your manager. Be obedient to your boss. Stop backbiting all the time. Stop gossiping and lying to everybody that you talk and then try to justify by your humanity. Listen, why don't you get out of that cloak of false righteousness and really walk in something like mercy? Why don't you walk in something like grace? Why don't you give the same grace that you receive? Stop drinking the Kool-Aid thinking that you're all that. I know it's been years, but you forgot. You forgot where you really came from. I came from nothing to a king. Now you missed some pieces in there. You missed some pieces where you weren't as always obedient as you thought. You hurt some people. And so there's some stuff you did back in the past that is a barrier to what you want to do in your now. Listen, there are people that don't realize that people warned you and it's serious. And listen, if the warnings meant nothing, if it really meant nothing, and like I'm saved now, so none of that matters. David is at that place right now. It is in my heart to do it. I want to do it. And God said, like, there's some stuff that's prohibiting you. But first of all, let's get down to this. He says, listen, from like the day I brought Israel out to up to now, I've been dwelling in the same place, in the same tabernacle, in the same tent. And I moved from one dwelling place to another. Now, you go back, because you got, historians, you got scribes, at the ready. Ring that little bell and tell them to go back over the history books. When did I ever ask for a house of cedar? When did I ever ask you to enhance me? What makes you think you can beautify me? I mean, listen, here's what I gave you. I gave you pure God, right? That's what I was giving you. Uncut, raw God. You think, and you sit up and it's like, yeah, this seems right. Like there's got to be something I can do to add to that. That's the problem right there. You think you can add to it. Listen, what you need to do is stay in the appreciation, gratitude spot. But you are not in the adding spot. Well, and some of that is because I haven't chosen you. This is about purpose. God has said, he later goes on to say, you're not going to build my house. Your son Solomon will. I picked him for the job. There's some stuff you can't do in your time. Listen, this is solemn. This is serious, though. That there's some things that God is saying, listen, I can't get you into the mode of what you're supposed to do because you're still trying to do some stuff you can't do. You're prohibited from. I did not tell you to graduate. Didn't I tell you don't get that on your record? Didn't I tell you stop doing that? And like you kept on doing it with your hard-headed self. And so now that that's there, there's some stuff you ready for. And you saying, listen, I could run this city. You ain't gonna be mayor not with that record. You did that though. That was 19 and 20. You forgot though, because you've been a good father all this time. You forgot that. You got a felon. That's a big F on your record. You forgot that. Listen, this is your third wife. But we told you about them first two, right? I told you that trial. You should, but you ain't listen. You said God told you. So every one of those things that was just a little error, you don't realize that whatever a man sows, that shall he also reap. And the moment your heart is ready to move into a direction that you think is right, you'll find out that God is saying, listen, I didn't pick you for it, but I'm going to tell you, you got a background. Your background has prohibited you from doing something. That saved people right now that are struggling and wondering, God, why am I struggling so much? I'm saved, sanctified, and filled with the Holy Ghost. Yeah, but you just wouldn't listen to anybody. That little rebellion that phase you went through in school and all throughout that time where you listen to nobody, you're missing some things. Listen, you're not missing salvation. You're going to go to heaven when you die. You're not missing the Spirit of the Lord. He's keeping you surviving right now. Listen, you are eating oodles and noodles by the grace of God because as ignorant as you were back in the day, as ignorant as you were, you shouldn't be eating anything. It's by the grace of God that you got out after 13 years. But listen, that 13 years is going to hit you. You're behind the 8 ball. So yes, we're ready to do this. But you can't do it because you did that. And so, yes, when you think back over your life, there's so many things that we look at and we say, this God is funny. No, this ain't God being funny. This is God saying, listen, I didn't pick you. In my wisdom, I knew I couldn't use you for that. I can use you for some other things. Listen, let's get ready for what you're going to be used for. But that thing that's in your heart to do, you're not going to be no. Remember I was telling you about people skills and getting with people, and you was like, yeah, later, not right now. I don't trust people. Well, now that you're ready and I want to talk to the youth. Listen, you stayed away from them too long. You don't know kids now. Listen, that's you. You did that. Somebody's got that can't be you. The God didn't say, listen, I don't want it to be you. God was like, listen, let me just tell you something. It can't be you. It can't be you. Listen, your mindset isn't there. I'm going to have to call you. I didn't tell you about this. I'm going to talk to your son about it, but I'm not going to talk to you about it. Legacy is going to be continued, but he's going to complete the legacy, not you. He's going to complete it, not you. You're going to want to bless me, but you can't, because I can't take it from your hands because of what you've forgotten. See, listen, there's some stuff, again, there's a wall in our life, and God is saying, no, the devil, Satan, get down from there. Satan, remove that wall. Satan, you better cease and desist. Whatever you thinking, you wondering, you tripping. You said cease and desist in 2011. You was still get from over my life in 2017. Listen, why you had the same battle cry? Let me tell you something. That's not Satan. That wall you built was you. You put that around your vision. You were the one who was saying, God is saying, you were the one who kept me from doing this. Listen, I sanctioned your victories. I told you where to go, but listen, you don't realize that you had a murderous phase. That's going to come back and get you. You had a rebellious phase. That was just a phase. Whatever a man sows, that should also reap. Listen, did I ever request a house? I didn't put that on you. Listen, not just you. I never told Moses that, Moses, you got to build me a house. No. I never told them, listen, Joshua, you got to beautify me. Somehow, I mean, you need to do. I never told Ezekiel, listen, when they leave Babylon, make sure they have the Ark of the Covenant and put me in a temple. No. So when you begin to look at this is a rebuke. But it's not just a rebuke, in the fact that, like, David, you're a sinner. No, it's a rebuke about purpose. This is not your purpose. God will rebuke us sometimes because it's like, this is not my plan for you. I know my plan. So what I'm telling you, absolutely not. Get out of there. That's not for you. I don't care whether you graduated or not. You'll never be a lawyer. Why? Because it's not my plan for you. So many of us are struggling. It's like, God, but that's what I want to be. I want to be a reporter. And God's like, listen, you will understand. You're going to be successful in the thing I've called you to. I promise you this. You're going to be very awesome in the thing. You've been awesome where I called you. Where your daddy put you, you weren't so great. You were out there fighting lions and bears by yourself. Where I put you, you was killing giants left and right. Where I put you, no matter what happened, you still got to where I told you you're going to be. Let me still keep directing you. You know what that means? That means that some of us are going to have some dreams torn up in our face. Some of us have to tear them up. God is like saying, listen, every blueprint you have, it's not going to be you. So I need you to go and, like, everything you told the architect, tell him it's not going to happen. Tear it up. Because listen, you can't walk in the new blueprint that God wants to give. He's not, listen, this is not God ripping the blueprint out of David's hand and saying, now go to sleep empty-handed. Go to sleep without any milk and cookies. No, this is God saying, listen, that's going to keep you up at night because you'll never accomplish it. Matter of fact, you're not going to live long enough to see it. I know your life. I know your time. I've numbered every hair on your head. This is going to freak you out. You trying to operate in an assignment you're not anointed for is going to be called what's a burden. There are people in a prison in church right now, and God is like, well, you're not supposed to be teaching Sunday school. I mean, you're not a teacher. So I get why you're nervous every year. I get why you're nervous every Sunday. I get why you're mad at the pastor because he asked you to do an assignment. You're not real. You're not the one. You aren't the one to do it. You volunteered to do it because there's somebody needs to teach the kids. You don't think that it's a powerful place to be a teacher? You thought anybody could just pop up and do it? God is redirecting people right now. That weight that so many people are feeling that you thought was just, well, that just comes with the territory. God said, listen, the devil is a liar. My yoke is easy and my burdens are light. Listen, there's a yoke, no doubt about it, that you're going to feel, but you're going to be able to accomplish it. And there's this mass multiple failure that is happening in so many people's lives that are designed for success. It's only because you're running a race that's not yours. You're a sprinter, and you're trying to figure out, like, why the 2 mile is wearing you out. Because you don't have the lungs for that. You know, you're a sprinter. Get back in your race. You're going to be great at 200 yards, but you wonder why you peter out after 400 meters. Because you're not built like that. That's not what God has for you. And listen, you changing your position is where God is. This is God telling David, change your position. Change your heart. I'm telling you where I am. I'm not in what you want me to do. I'm not in the plan you came up with. Listen, I want you to get this, because I believe there's some people right now that are looking at a plan that they came up with, and God said, I'm not in that business. Because listen, I know you got to the church or you went to your friends and they were like, hey, you got to be an entrepreneur. And God's like, that's not you. That's not you. Your little shop is going to fold. I mean, and it's not, and then you sitting up there like, how can he just got out of jail. I mean, he got a shoe store. Like, how is he flourishing? And like, I'm out here doing, and God's like, because you're not a sneaker salesman. That be just plain and simple. You're not and I'm not giving it to you. You know why? Because I don't do magic. You know, remember I told you to roll in that business administrator, but you didn't. Remember you went to DeVry. Remember when I told you that, listen, all I want you to do is just go get this, go to the junior college, and you didn't want to do it. Remember you didn't do it and you became mechanic in the military? Listen, it's great, but don't come out here now thinking you're going to be able to sell sneakers and market. You didn't take the marketing class I told you. Listen, there's so much of that. So God is like saying, but I haven't expected in for you. Listen, I knew you was going to mess up. I got something else for you. This is a rebuke, but it doesn't imply sin. It just implies a problem, first of all, with David thinking he could beautify God. Listen, you understand who you are. Like, if you really thought back on this right, you would realize that, God, what am I going to add to you? God was like, listen, I've been awesome in a tent. I took people out from Egypt. Listen, I've been great in a tent. Do you see how I roll in the tent? I don't need your building. Listen, I don't need you to add, Family Life Center for me to be an awesome God. I'm not more awesome because you added on rooms. Listen, I don't want you to miss this. I've been awesome. I brought a nobody and made him a somebody. Listen, while I was in the tent. So you understand, like, when I was in the tent with Israel, but I was out there fighting against the Philistines. Like, I went before them. I was their rear guard. Like, but in this tent, do you understand you have never held me in a tent? Do you understand you can't hold me in your building? Do you understand that you don't have a place that's for me? Did you miss the whole thing, that I'm bigger than any of the ark? That I'm bigger than the little thing you're carrying around? Did you get that I gotta be bigger because you had me in the back, and yet I was in the front, defeating your enemies without you all shooting an arrow or throwing a spear. So I'm bigger than that. You don't get my bigness yet. That's what I'm saying. Listen, there's another generation that's coming that's going to understand my bigness. That guy that's coming, he will understand. Lord, listen, I can't do it. You said you can do it. I can't use you right now. I can't use people who think they can do it. Listen, I know that you've been infused with human confidence. You've been infused with American self-confidence. And God's like, I'm looking for somebody that has a task. And they say, Lord, this is bigger than me. That's what Solomon said when he heard. He was like, how can I? I need your help. David was like, I don't need help worshiping. I know how to worship. You've gotten really big for your britches here, buddy. But that's cool. But but I want you to see this. In first Chronicles that I read to you in 22:8, David has some revelation, right? He comes and he says, but the word of the Lord came to me, saying, you have shed much blood and have waged great wars. You will not build my house, and not into my name, because you shed great blood. God was the one who empowered David throughout his reign. God was the one who said, listen, slaughter them. Don't let anyone that pisses against the wall be left alive. God was the one, if it's genocide, whatever you want to call it, God did that. So there's so much that these were God's people. God can do what he wants to do. But there's a history here of illegal blood. There's a history here while David is hiding from Saul. That he kills some people. That while David is hiding from Saul and he sides with the Philistines for a time, he kills innocent people to kind of prove himself to the Philistine king. And you know what? David is about to. David doesn't, but David is about to kill Israelites. Right? And like on the outskirts. He doesn't want to go into the cities, but on the outskirts. He's so mad at Saul. In some ways, he's so mad at God. He literally is a traitor for a short period of time. And listen, he doesn't actually kill these people because God intervenes. God intervenes to the heart of the Philistine king and won't let David be a part of it. He said, no, You ain't gonna come out with us. I don't trust you. God put it in the enemy's hand to keep David from doing what David would have done to make himself an enemy of Israel and of God. So when you begin to look at this, he shed blood on his own. God is saying, like, this ain't sanctioned. You were a murderer. You were a beast. Do you remember when the woman's husband came out and didn't want to feed you, like, on his land with his food and with his money? You were so entitled that you wanted to go kill that guy. The woman had to come out. I believe it was Abigail. She had to come out and beg for her husband's life. Amazing. You've chilled, though. But I want you to understand something. You know what I need? I need a man of peace. And you know, all that life that you lived, they didn't make you a man of peace. It made you a man of war. And for the thing that I'm trying to build now, you can't be it. You fulfilled, you almost fulfilled your purpose. You've got another purpose in this, but like, you can't do it. This got to you. Listen, as you think back over your life, we glorify our lives. We think back over our lives, and we just see from here to here. You know, take a couple brews back and think back from how far we've come. Whew, boy, you know, from the projects to here, there's a lot of stuff you forgot, though. It wasn't just from the projects that you forgot that how you got that promotion and you stepped on your brother, that, you know, you remember the inside information, and, you know, you got to do what you got to do. It's a dog-eat-dog world. You don't think like that now, but you did. Remember the lies that you told, and you got those people hurt, and, you know, but you never admit it, because, you know, you gonna lie, you gonna stick with it. That's what you thought back in the day. That you don't think like that now. You know, remember you had the little drug dealing phase, and, like, how many people did you poison? How many people got killed? Remember all the stuff that happened, you know, and with the girl up in the... But that was that, you know, you were young. Those were the kid, and we just, and this is where God gets funny. But there's nothing funny. This isn't God coming and saying, "Ha, look at me, I've got a sense of humor. I'm bringing you back your 20s." No, this is God saying, you don't understand. You were sowing seeds in your 20s. This was becoming a part of your personality. You listen, as you mellowed out, you don't realize you had long years where this is who you were. People were afraid of you. You were not a good guy. This is my work. This is not your work. You know, as you're glorifying it, you don't realize you spit in my face a lot of times. What did you think it meant when you went through villages killing innocent people and brought their heads just to prove to an enemy king that you down? Because you mad about Saul, because you mad at me. Listen, you went to the enemy's territory and he didn't kill you. Saul was after you, the king. He didn't kill you. And you sit up there complaining that I didn't deliver you. You didn't have to go out there and do that. You didn't have to cheat like that. You forgot that, and you thought I forgot. And God said, listen, I'm going to tell you right now, it's your back in the day life that's keeping you from going forward in the way you want. And listen, I'm telling you right now, there's not a solution here. This is not one that I'm saying to you, listen, do this. No, I'm saying, listen, don't sow any more seeds. Watch the seeds you sow, because there's another day. There's people right now that are sowing seeds at 40 or 50 with their children, with their family. And then when they're 83 and they're sitting up and saying, I'm all alone. You forgot you couldn't call people that? You forgot you couldn't say that and hurt them like that? You forgot you couldn't give them the middle finger and tell them you don't care. You forgot that you were going to need people. You were going to always be strong. What do you think was going to happen when you needed that 20-pound bags of groceries to get up, and now 20 pounds is like 200 pounds because you were feeble? You didn't know that you were going to have multiple sclerosis. You had no idea that your hands were going to be withered from arthritis, and now you can't call on them, and you're trying to convince everybody around you that you're a victim, and you forgot. You forgot you didn't help them when they needed you. You forgot. You said those are your kids. So now you want those same grandkids to come and take you to the mall when you didn't want to give them any wisdom. Remember, you forgot. Remember, you was cracked out. You was still getting drunk. Crazy as it was, pop, out there fall down the street. And now you got yourself together because the doctor said, one more drink and you're going to die. You forgot that you were absent. You forgot you were absent for generations. You forgot how you treated mom. You forgot how you treated our brother. So now you're trying to figure out, but y'all going to see me out here like this? You forgot you saw us out there like that? So there's so much that happens here. And so God is saying, it's not part of my plan for you to have that. Now, your dream is not going to come true. The legacy is going to be completed, but not by you. You missed that. You could have completed some things, but there's some stuff that's going to be left undone. That's your penalty. That's part of what you're going to have to live with. And listen, I want to tell you right now, I can't trust you with that because that past stuff, you never got delivered from it. You got better with it, but it's in you. Force is in you. Making people do it is in you. And for where I'm going, for this next shift, I needed you for that. But listen, for where I'm going, I need a man of peace, not a man of war. I need somebody who doesn't rely on selfishness, doesn't rely on destroying people. I'm trying to build people. I'm trying to build hearts and minds. You can't build my house. You don't have my model for that. You're a man after my own heart, and you are perfect for your time. But I'm talking about a new time and a new shift. And I don't need physical might here. It's not by power, not by might, but by my spirit, says the Lord. I need love in this one. I need people that are able to forgive. I need somebody's heart that's more pliable. Listen, I'm telling you right now, there's a shift that God has for people who are in touch with their emotions, in touch with their spirit. There was a time, and there were people who were looking and saying, God, am I out? Is it over? And God said, yeah, it is over. Some of that hard stuff worked during that time, but I don't need that now. There's a whole group of unchurched people, and I need people that are more patient. It's tight, but it's right. I don't play that. That worked in 99. That worked in 2010. Not where we're going now. We're going at a whole different place where I need you to feed my sheep. That's what I need. I need somebody who recognizes what they did and are grieved in their heart about it. David wasn't grieved. He was really just honoring and worshiping God. And God was like, when you think about your life, like when you went back down memory lane, I didn't see one tear. You know what? Because you glamorized that, but not me. God came back and the word of the Lord said. God came back and reminded him. That was big stuff, buddy. That kid that you bashed his head in, that was my son. That was my son. I could have bashed your head in. You know what I did? I put a crown on it. That's what I did for you. I put a crown on your head, and you bashed the heads of my people. You were going to destroy your own legacy. So don't get mad at me. Like, God, I'm not going to fulfill it. You should be. You're so blessed that you have one. You're so blessed that you have one. You're so blessed that you're not all alone, that I'm still here with you. But physical might has no power here. And so when you begin to look at this, one of the things that God comes and he says to David, he says, you're not the one who's going to build my house, but your son is. Your son is going to build my house. There's so much shedding blood, but he says, it is Solomon your son who shall build my house and my courts, for I have chosen him to be my son, and I will be his father, and I will establish his kingdom forever. Now, once you see this, it says, if he continues strong in my and keep my commandments and rules as he is today, your house is being kept by me. You have been kept by me. So he says, listen, this is what David said. He said, I had it in my heart to build a house of rest for the ark of the covenant of the Lord and for the footstool of God, and I made preparations for the building. God shifts David. Right? Listen, this looks like it is horrible news. David is going to die, but not for decades. And David now gets this task. Listen, you're not going to build a house, but here's what I want you to do. I want you to get materials, building materials for your son, so that when his time comes and he's going to build it, his dad would have been a part of getting the materials together. I'm going to let you touch it. I'm just not going to let you build it. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm not leaving the house of David. I'm going to adopt your son as my son. I'm honoring you. Listen, I'm not going to let you do that. But listen, being my guy. Being my guy. Listen, you think I forgot? Listen, I didn't forget your sin. I didn't forget what you did. But you know what? I didn't forget your courage either. I didn't forget your faithfulness either. Listen, while you was out there messing up, you still were calling on me. You were still writing about me. You still loved me. You were off base. You were crazy during that time. But you know what? You still talked to me. You didn't understand me all the time, but you stayed in with me. You thought I forgot? Listen, when we talk about that, and it's like, you thought I forgot what you did? No, this is God saying, you thought I forgot what you did? Those little victories meant something to me. They meant enough for me to maintain your legacy. I'm not breaking my promise. And this isn't like in spite of your mess. No, this is like because you love the legacy. I'm keeping the legacy. You want to build a house. That's not what we're going to do. That's small potatoes. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to build the man you love. I'm going to take him on my own. Listen, when you get ready to close your eyes, here's what you'll know. He knows God and God knows him. Like when you look and say, will the house of David remain? Yeah, it's going to remain. You don't have to build that to be who you are. There's some stuff that you're looking and saying, I gotta leave a legacy. And God's like, you don't have to leave $1 million to be who you are. There's some people right now that like at your funeral aren't going to get but 25 cents, and they'll never forget you. You what you did is so huge. The way you lived and how you operated and the stuff you came out is so huge. They're gonna eat off of that for generations. There'll be kids who never saw you and will look and say, yeah, but you gotta remember, my great grandfather, God said, I'm giving you something bigger. Listen, as we look at this and it's like, God, you're taking this out of my hands. Look at what he's putting in his hands. So when you begin to look at this, he turns what would be a horrible moment into a blessing. I'm going to bless your son. And so when you begin to look at this, God is talking generations here. God is talking about, here's what you can give. You can't tell your son about peace. You really can't, because you were not a man of peace. You fought all your life. You're not going to be able to leave the legacy of peace. But I'm going to adopt him. And so as the Prince of Peace, I'll teach him peace. But man, you lived a life of worship, though. You fell down and you got up. You can give him that. He's going to need that. He's not going to need the other stuff because I got it. See, listen, I want you to get that. You didn't have a lot of mercy sometime. I'm the God of mercy. I'm going to adopt your son. So what you couldn't give him, I'm going to give him. But you know what? There's some stuff you have. And sometimes we can look at God and we can look at what we lack and what we didn't have. And we're saying, God is like, I'm not there. I mean, if you're crying over that, listen, keep on crying. But I'm not there. I'm not throwing you tissue because I'm not there. I'm not in the room with you on that. So listen, get where I am. Because if you can get where I am, I'm telling you what you have. I'm telling you, you're a worshiper, man. You're a praiser. You're a courageous guy. You can stand in the face of the enemy. You know, you just refuse to run. You're so ingenious. You are creative. Give him that. That's what you got from me. You didn't get it all from me. You didn't change your whole life. When you look back on it, you didn't make the full turn. You didn't become as nice as you should have. You didn't forgive like you should have. You held some things. You know, you built philosophies. Like, listen, I'm telling you right now, I just ain't there. You come and do that to me, I know what you're going to get. Listen, you never got to the point where it's like, though he slay me, yet will I trust. Listen, I get it. But man, listen, let's talk about what you have. And that's what God is doing. And when you begin to look at this, as a father, God touches now. He stops dealing with David as a king. He's dealing with David as a father. Because that's where David is. This is where God is saying, you came at me like a king. You know who you really are? You're a dad, man. I mean, at this stage in your life, you got the king thing down. But you know what? Where you really were lacking is as a father, you don't get this. I'm giving you a second chance. You didn't build anything for Absalom like that. You didn't. You didn't protect Tamar. You know, Abijah, you weren't there like you were supposed to be. You didn't train them. Here's what I'm going to give you a chance to do. Train him. Show him the materials he's going to need to build something for me. You know me better than he does. I'm going to bless you to train your son to be what you never were. What an awesome legacy. It's too late for you, but not too late for him. And since he comes from you, by blessing him, I bless you. Listen, I want you to understand something. There's some stuff that we're not going to get. There's some stuff we messed up, but God is saying, listen, don't boo-hoo. You got a kid over there. You got a 17-year-old over there. You got a 33-year-old over there. They're still looking at you, and you are still here. So this isn't like, God, I'll never be a scientist. I'll never be a physicist. God's like, no, you won't. Not with those grades you get. No way. You didn't never built up a study habit. But man, let's look at what you have. You are a survivor. Oh man, you can take a licking and keep on ticking. Listen, whether they become scientists or not, they're going to need that. So let's stop dealing with what's under the bridge. It's over. You're not going to get that. But let's look at what you have. You remember at the Gate Beautiful, the disciples were there and they saw a guy who was lame, crippled. And, and he was looking for money. And Peter said, listen, I don't have any money. Silver and gold I don't have. But what I do have, I'm going to give. God didn't ever really make me the money guy. Peter was never dealt with that way. Judas even got it. But Peter was never dealt with on the money side. He never got the cash. He may have gone after the bag all his life, but he never got the bag. So the guy's looking for somebody with the bag. And he's like, I don't have the bag. But here's what I do have. I've got healing power. I've got this tremendous faith that if I speak it, God will do it. He can. And I just think he will. So listen, I have the ability to reach down and pull people up. And I strengthen people when I talk to them. I didn't do what I was supposed to do over here. I could have been that. But here's what I am. I'm an empowerer. So This is where God is saying, listen, start pouring out what you have. Because that's where your purpose really lies. It is not God who designed the purpose. It's like, oh man, you missed it. God was like, you were never going to build it. I always knew that was going to affect you, but I always knew what it wasn't going to touch. Job, I knew you was going to be a whiner and complainer, but you know what I knew? It was never going to touch your spirit. I knew what it wasn't. I'd already set it up. So David, you were not going to build a house. You didn't fail. You weren't going to ever do it. It was never, but here's your purpose. You're a builder. You're a preparer. Prepare him for the next level. So I want you to understand where we are right now. What God is speaking to people right now. Listen, there's a generation out there. You're not dancing anymore. I can tell you right now, there's so many people that I'm talking to right now. You listen, you ain't gonna be no captain of industry. Listen, there's some blessings. There's some stuff that God can do. But there's some spaces right now where you're not gonna be an astronaut. You're not going to the NBA. Listen, you're 62. I can promise you right now, they're not looking at you on the football field. You're still burly and big, but like you ain't gonna start for the Eagles next year. But listen, that's not that big of a deal. You never really put much into lifting like you were supposed to, right? You could have done it. You got the stories. I was at the minor leagues and I could have made it, but girls and all that stuff. Okay, so you're not gonna go. You're not gonna coach either. You're not gonna go. But listen, let me tell you something. There's a group of kids that are waiting on you who will literally not go to prison, who will literally not do that thing because Coach Johnson was there. Nah, you won't hear the roar of that crowd, but you'll just hear the accolades of so many mothers and fathers who said, Coach Johnson, if it wasn't for you, I don't know what he would have done. Yeah, I've got something for you. So let's not despise the gifts that God has. Let's not boo-hoo over what's not going to happen. Let's begin to look at God saying, you're still going to be a part of it. And I'm going to let you live for decades to be able to build stuff up, to be able to say, man, when I'm gone, this is my son going to have. He's going to do this for God. So listen, I hope that you receive that today. I hope you really grab hold of what God is doing. Listen, there's some stuff that's not going to happen, but there's some stuff that's about to happen. There's some things you can't get, but there's some stuff you can get. And David had influence. You can get some wood for him. You can get some gold for him. You can get timber, get workers for him. Use all your influence to prepare this next generation for what I'm about to do. God is going to do great things, and we're still here. But I guarantee you right now we're in a preparation mode. God is saying, listen, get out there and start talking to people. Get these young people ready. Listen, if anybody can do the impossible, it's you. Let's stop looking and saying, I can't do it. These people are crazy. No, you were crazy. Listen, it's easy to forget how crazy you were. But if you can come around, whatever power it took to get you out of the crazy, you ain't promiscuous anymore, but you know what you were doing. You don't do what you used to do, but you forgot what you used to do. And God is saying, listen, let's use that crazy day. Let's use all that so that you won't be afraid of these crazy kids. And you won't see crazy. You'll see hope. You'll see you. Listen, my prayer is that you'll get this today. I want you to have an awesome, awesome Sunday. And I want you to be blessed today. Go out and share this. Share this with somebody verbally. Share this with just showing love. Share this with thinking about your purpose and even the redirection that God is taking you on. And we just bless you for all your support. Thank you for all that you've done. And stay in, because there's going to be so much more that God is going to be talking about. We're going to be here Wednesday. We're going to be here Thursday. We'll be here Sunday. We're going to stay on here, making sure you get the direction and that you understand that you're empowered to live. God bless you. Have an awesome Sunday.